So first things first, guys. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I'm alright, thank you. Well, before we jump into the album, I'd like to jump back a little bit. And well, obviously you grew up together. You lived next door.
Mm-hmm.
When did you realize about each other that music was a thing? Was that already at that young of an age?
It developed over time, I think.
Well, we grew up in Shepherd's Bush, and I went along the back wall, and I think I tried to sell you a guitar.
That was broken.
That was broken. That's the myth, anyway.
That's the myth.
And then you just something to do as kids. You just write music and skateboard and play football and all sorts of. You have time when you're a kid to like explore, and we just liked writing songs together. It was our thing.
What was it about music then? Because like you may say, you have so many other things you can do. You can play football. You can.
Yeah. I guess it just was the thing that I felt most.
It's hard to say. Why?
Natural.
It's a hard question to answer. What inspires you? Why does that inspire you? I don't know, because it fills you with some sort of hope. That's I think the main thing about it. Is
music gives you emotion.
Yeah.
And potentially, we're both quite emotional people. But like our friends are quite like. Maybe that's just what we connect to, and it helps us like understand ourselves. I think that's quite an important aspect of music for me, especially. Hearing other people's stories, you gather sort of like an emotional information, and like in a kind of an emotional database almost. That you can then apply to your own situations to like help you understand it.
Was there maybe one artist or song that in particular kind of you bonded over? And then like
depends
you mentioned
it depends what
year,
year,
which era.
Well, the earliest you can remember, kind of.
High school was like UK hip hop,
Okay.
like artists like Jest, Task Force, Brain Tax,
Yeah.
Kalashnikov.
Right through to kind of some weird Red Hot Chili Peppers music.
Like Blood Sugar Sex Magic, that was a record. Moon Safari was another record that we connected over.
Okay.
There were so many.
So it was already very eclectic. It wasn't one thing.
Yeah, I think we never went headfirst into a specific genre, because we just liked good shit wherever if it was hip hop, jazz, like krautrock, funk. Just like whatever happened, we loved the Strokes. They were like, one of our favourite bands when we were kids. It was just cool.
And you mentioned those early songs. Do you have a recording of those, or
A recording
of those early those initial songs?
Well, it was sort of before the age of hard drives and all those sort of things. So there's probably a few that have survived. I remember losing one of my hard drives. It fell on the floor because the cable was plugged in over there, and somebody came in, and I moved and I pulled the hard drive off the table and just basically deleted half my life. But it's not that precious.
So what in an instance like that, is it then just clean slate? We move on from here.
You got to.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to remember all those things you wrote when you were like 12.
Yeah, I always think it's that thing of not knowing what's on there. When you do something where you don't know what you've lost, it's like what could have been on there. I want to be able to open it, but that's like a human being sort of perspective on how we try and save everything.
What interests me about those early recordings is, if you listen to it, and I don't know when the last time was that you heard any of it, but could you hear kind of what you were trying to do? What you kind of, if you think of where you are now, what you were trying to do?
I think you have different inspirations at different periods in your life. I think from an early age when you're making music, you tend to like copy bands more and like direct copies of, we sounded like the Strokes for a long time, which was cool because the Strokes are kind of good, but we were never as good as them. And I think it sort of develops until you get to a place where you've listened and taken in enough music that you start to use all of your influences rather than just one specific one to create like a multi-influenced sound.
And was jungle then the first time that you kind of found this, because you did play in bands before? And
I think what jungle essentially was for us creatively was coming to a place where we were making music just for ourselves. We weren't trying to be like somebody else for the first time, and I think that just came with like growing up a little bit and having some experiences in life as an adult, and like that just teaches you to be confident with who you are rather than trying to like fit into a genre or fit into a scene or like it just felt natural for the first time, I guess.
When did you figure out that it was taking off, that it was that people could find something in what you were making?
We're still waiting for a sign. It's very difficult to say because when you're inside it, you don't really have perspective on what it is to the outside world. When we play to festival crowds that enjoy it and give us something back, I think that's a moment where the music becomes real, and it's like, oh wow, everybody's together enjoying this. It's not just a concept in your head. You get to share it, and that's quite rewarding.
What was it like then the first time you went on stage? Was it natural?
Terrifying. Yeah, especially with these songs that we did on the first record. I remember we played a gig in Manchester at a venue which is closed down now called Roadhouse, and it was like 250 people in the room, but we were super. I remember that feeling was like, oh my lord, what are we doing? It's about to go on a roller coaster, and essentially that's what you do it for, pushing yourself like you don't know, into an area of not knowing.
Yeah. Because at that point, the right around the first gig, where is your mentality in terms of pursuing music? Is it a very concrete thing at that point?
Yeah, I think it's been probably quite a concrete thing in our heads for. I mean, like most of my, music's always just been the thing that we've done. Like whatever it's like.
Music is like an escape for us, like it is for most people. Whether you're listening to it or whether you're making it. When you're making it, it's another level of escape than just listening to it. Just listening to it, you get that removed aspect to it. You can relate to that person singing. But when you're creating it and making it in the moment, whether you're just jamming or you're like writing something, it's a place to like, you can create the space that you feel, or sometimes create a space that you don't want to feel. And then you bin those ones.
But, well, we'll get to that later. But at that point, because things are taking off, and I'm sure. Well, what is it like to be in the middle of that whirlwind? Because from the outside, obviously, you see a band that's going off and doing well, but being inside of that hurricane, what is that like?
I don't think you have we're not able to have the perspective of what it looks like, because you're
in the middle. Like I could tell you what it's like for other bands to. What we see of other bands or other artists, seeing them go from zero to hero, but it's very difficult to see whereabouts you are yourself. That's kind of difficult.
Well, let me ask it differently then. The first year, and the time that you were included in the BBC Sound of Paul.
Yeah.
How did you experience that year? Was it just one euphoric moment after the other?
I don't think it was what.
I think it starts with like the feeling is like, oh, you go, oh, amazing, we get that, like Zane Lowe played it, like that's great, like this is great, and then it happened, something else will happen on the back of that, and like, oh, Columbia Records want to speak to you, what, and then like, XL want to speak to us, and it's like, cool, well XL aren't sure, and then they're like, oh, XL came to the gig, they loved it. They're really interested. Cool.
It just kept happening, and once it's just like one thing after the other, you just take it. You have to take everything in your stride. I think, just not having no expectations. That's an important thing.
And musically, does I imagine by that time you've had a lot of music done already, but does that whole I don't want to say circus, but that whole thing, does that influence the creativity? Do you still...
When we released the first single, we didn't really have any other singles, Okay. Platoon came out, and we had the video with Bigar Terror in it, and we didn't even have The Heat written by then, and that was the second single. So I definitely remember there being a period of like, come on, hurry up, we got to put something out.
And we were reacting to stuff.
Yeah, and then the same happened with The Heat to Busy, and the songs were out while we were making new songs, which means you get like
it's an energy,
a feedback energy.
definitely an energy in that.
Right. And final question about this period, and how do you look back at that debut album now?
With fondness, it's just like a massive part of our lives, you know, and it's a massive positive period in our lives, and I think that like that's a great thing to have been a part of, and you know, we're proud of it, and we're proud of what we've achieved, and proud of our friendship, and proud of all those things that happened.
And then you tour a lot. I think it wasn't until 2016 that you kind of went off the road. But at that point, where is your mind? Are you kind of done with it, or do you keep thinking about, okay, we need to make the next album?
I think we definitely, well, we realised that we needed to have time away from it and to live through like a little bit of life and have some experiences. Obviously, we spent so long on the road that we kind of, you miss a little period of growing up in your life slightly, and so it was important to do that.
Totally. I think also with the way that it happened with us, we weren't really expecting to to do anything. It wasn't really like you know, we like to kind of organise things and like make cool stuff, but we got to a point where like, oh, we're supposed to make a second record, or like someone was like, are you going to put some more music out? And we're like, what? It wasn't like, you know, we wrote a lot, and then we got very distracted by touring, and we kind of played a lot, and it was all about just playing constantly, and that was continued to kind of grow. So we kind of did that, and then we hit a period where it was like, okay, nobody wants to see you live anymore. They've seen you, thanks. And then we kind of went off and, you know, had some experiences and made some more music, and it's quite hard to write on the road. It's, you know, you're obviously doing stuff, you're getting the gig ready, you're sound checking, you do some interviews, and before you know it, the day is gone, and you need to be in a very lucid state to write. You need to be very kind of, like I'm experimenting, you know, like you put some stuff around and just play with it and see what happens. Right.
So how long did it take from going off the road to being able to go into that state and then kind of? Well,
we were sort of writing out of the back of the album and kind of going, okay, gearing up for that. We built a studio, which was cool, and you know, we finally had a little bit of money to buy some cool synths that we wanted for ages, and you know, that's definitely not the answer to making great music, but you know, it was about changing things and changing the way that we made music.
Why was this important?
The changing aspects of when you're making music, the change, and being in a place where like you're constantly looking to do things differently. There's a lot of times I'll sit down and I'll go to the same thing, or I'll try and make the same, like pick up the same thing and play the same thing, and you almost want to pick up something and turn it upside down and try and play it, because it's just like trying to get yourself into a creative space where you are like free, you know, to not be bound by the same repetitive things that make you feel safe. So it took us a little while to realise that as well, you know. I think everything's a learning process.
At the same time then, because you were very successful on the debut record, does that carry weight when you start writing?
I think we put pressure on ourselves, obviously, because as a creative person, you want your next output to be better than what you've done before, and I think potentially, we were slightly unnerved by how far that first record had taken us. Like, the success was a massive surprise to us, and so coming to terms with it in that sense was trying to like remove the pressure a little bit and go like, it's just fine, just go and create, just be yourselves again, and embrace things that feel different, embrace things that feel uncomfortable, because that's the only way you're going to progress and become like a better artist effectively.